Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We're back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans, and a bunch of matches have been announced for the upcoming Against All Odds. So we are going to be discussing the entire show thus far announced. So some of the stuff that I want to say this before we get right into discussing the matches that are actually on the card thus far. I think it's only one match next week that the match between Zaya and Rosemary. That match or that feud has been building for quite a while, and I felt like it was going to be on this show, and I feel like it should be on this show. I really don't understand why it's not on this show. What's going on, guys? Really? Same with, actually, no. The second one is EY and Moose. That's the other match that I feel like should be on this show. It shouldn't, I get it if you're going to do it in Canada, that does make some amount of sense. It's in, EY's home country, etc., so that kind of makes some sense. But then again, it's well, who are you going to get at Against All Odds? Or you're just not going to have the X Division title up for grabs? And then if you're not going to have Rosemary and Zaya, it's kind of well, their feud deserves to be on pay-per-view. I think they've worked hard, and their last match was on the pre-show. Their next match should be on this show. Then again, they could still do something. I don't know, but still, whatever. So, starting from the top, I think, this is how it's been laid out. So, the TNA World Championship will be on the line. So, it will be either Trick Williams or Mike Santana versus Elijah. This is Elijah's first shot at the TNA title. Now, I am 999.9% certain that Trick Williams is not going to retain, or is going to retain the title thus far. I don't think he's going to give it up in a week, or even less. No, a little bit more than a week, whatever it is. But still, I don't feel like it would make any sense in some ways for him to lose it yet. I want Mike Santana, or at least somebody in TNA, to bring that belt back to TNA, because again, that makes sense, or whatever. But still, and I still think Santana could be the best option to put the title on now in some ways, at least in terms of some things. But then again, it's really tough, because I know that Joe Hendry is still so super popular that it's but then again, it's why put the belt on him when he's not going to be there for very long? So you could still make him a draw and still use him as a draw in other aspects rather than him being the champion. But yeah, I still think that there is something there, but I don't know that how well they're going to do without having, that sort of thing going on, and without having Joe. So it's really tough, especially, I think that's another reason why they should have kept Ace Austin, but whatever, that's not up to me or whatever. But still, in regards to this match, it definitely, in my opinion, will be Trick Williams versus Elijah. That also makes sense from a babyface heel narrative. I do feel I think I said this before, or I don't know whether I did, but now that Trick is the champion, that I feel in that match between Santana and Trick, that somebody will interfere in some ways. I don't think it will be Joe, though. I still don't think that makes 100% sense in some ways, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it'd be Francis. I don't know. It has to be someone from this sort of, because I do think that they are trying to build to that 5-way, or whatever, 6-way, or whatever else it is that they're trying to build towards at Slammiversary. So that's where I'm kind of at right now with this. So I feel like it, this again it might have some shenanigan finishes just to keep Elijah kind of in the picture as well. So that, and to keep other people kind of in the picture. So, because that's, again, what I feel like they're building towards. They're building towards at least some sort of multi-man match, in my opinion. But then again, I could be totally wrong, but at least if they're, like, trying to do other things with some of these other people, then it will be something else. But yeah, that's the first one that we've got. Next one is Marsha Slam versus Lei Ling Lee. I don't really see the change happening here or happening yet. And honestly, if you're looking at the roster of knockouts here, it's quite difficult to see that anyone else that's on the roster, like, you could realistically build up, besides maybe Tessa. Maybe you could build up a bunch of people again, but, like, I don't know. I feel like the roster, like, Harley Hudson and Maya are really good additions. Like, what's the name? Indy's a really good addition as well. But, like, again, when you're just like I like the stuff, some of the stuff that they did with Maya and Harley, introducing them as tag team and whatnot, that wasn't bad. But again, it's like, there's two friggin' teams in the division. What are you doing? Like, you can't just keep making Franken teams and then hoping to put the belt on somebody just to kick the can down the road all the damn time. And then what are you gonna do with Luna and Threat? Like, now you've got to try to push one of them or both of them in some ways into a singles division, and there isn't much there for them to do, like, realistically. So it's like, what are they gonna do? And it's been like that for a while, where they've been forgotten about and whatever else and all this other stuff. So it's like, well, I don't know. But still, I don't see Lei Ling Lee winning this thing. I could be totally wrong, but again, like, yeah, I just don't really see it, because this is a, like, even less than a 1 month build. This is a 2 week build, or not even that, really. So again, it's like an okay B-show match or whatever, in some ways, or build at least. Like Lei hasn't really lost a whole lot in TNA, but it's like, she hasn't had that great of a showing. She hasn't really done a whole lot in the, singles division and whatnot. Like, despite me just saying there's only like one tag team, she's been tag teaming a whole lot, but her and Zaya never really challenged for the Knockouts titles, which just, again, basically shows that they're not even worth, anything if these people aren't challenging for them, or that people don't care enough about them and would rather pursue singles rivalries or singles action above that. So again, but still, I just see Marsha probably winning this. Did I say who was going to win against? I think I said, like, Trick was going to retain against Elijah. I think I said that. But yeah, in both of those, I was saying that. I don't know whether I actually made that perfectly clear, but whatever. I'm making sure now. Joe Hendry versus Frankie Kazarian. I do feel like this is very much, again, in the same vein as the first match. Like, this is building some stuff up towards building to that 5-way, 6-way, whatever multi-man match style thing they're going to have happen at Slammiversary. And I start to question, like, I don't know, dude, is it time to put the title on Kazarian? Because, again, like, if you say, let's put it on Santana, yeah, okay, cool in some ways. Obviously, I think he does deserve it, but then again, like, should we pull the trigger on Kazarian? I don't know. It's incredibly tough for me to say no, because he's put in a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of energy, and maybe you should hold it and then, be done with it. Like, I don't know. I do not know. I can't tell you, dude. Honestly can't. But yeah, I don't know. This one's a bit more tough. I do feel like it could end in shenanigans as well. So I don't know. We'll probably get this one hasn't really got a lot of build yet to it, but it'll probably get a little bit of build next. Oh, well, it kind of has a lot of build and not a lot of build. They've been kind of feuding on and off for quite a while. And like I thought, like Joe might be facing Kazarian at some point in a singles match. They almost faced off in a singles match, and I think they probably should have just faced off in a singles match, and then Ethan Page, came into the picture, and I think that he should have probably got a singles match, but whatever. I think that they wanted to protect, everyone kind of, or as many people as possible in that match in some ways, in some forms, in some fashions, or give other things kind of like more perspective. I don't know. Whatever you sort of think about, like giving other people more space to sort of like, oh well, he only lost because X, because Y, and it was on TNA anyway, so in a triple threat, so he only had a 33 and a third chance of winning or whatever, because he's not Scott Steiner or whatever, like so. But yeah, like still, I can't really figure out, because it's like I start to think that since Henry's probably going to be leaving soon, that you going to start that trend of him like losing to everyone kind of thing. Like I don't know where that begins and ends. So yeah, I don't know. Is this the last one? I don't think it is. It's the. Oh no, there's a couple more matches here. Okay, so the next one is against Santino Marella and Robert Stone. This one will determine the winner will officially be the director of TNA Authority. I kind of feel like this should have been like built up to Slammiversary, but whatever. I don't know. And the thing about this is, like, in some ways, it's like, well, it would be in some ways good to have Robert come in and do the Authority in some ways, because that does help with some storylines and some characters and whatnot, keeping them getting over and seeming to have to face obstacle after obstacle and after obstacle, sort of thing. But it's tough, because it's like, well, is he gonna friggin' stick around, like, type thing, or can he stick around? Like, he's got duties in WWE, so it's like, are they gonna let him, slip back down to TNA or slip away to TNA? I don't know. Like, that they could, I guess, but it's like, well, even though they've got that partnership and it is a multi-year partnership, I just don't see them committing this much time to somebody else on another brand, or not committing, but letting somebody else be on another show so much so that, it's like, well, now when we want you, you're doing that, or whatever else it is. So, like, to me, like, they should be looking at saying, well, you're not probably sticking around, so hey, let's put it back on Santino or something. I don't know. I honestly don't. Both of them have their partners in their corner, Ariana Grace and Tessa Blanchard, so I expect a lot of shenanigans in this one here. So yeah, I do feel like, though I think Robert would be, in some ways, like that heel authority figure could be better for directing storylines in some ways. I know fans aren't hugely into that, but again, like, that is better for the baby faces having to face the adversity of the Authority and whatnot. But yeah, I do feel like Santino is probably going to win this, because it's like, well, like, how long can Robert stick around? I just don't see that happening. It's super unlikely to me. But then again, I always keep thinking, like, Santino really isn't a TNA guy. I never really associate him that much with TNA, and Robert was in TNA, so it's kind of like really kind of in a weird place, like, like in some ways. So, but still, yeah, I don't really see it. Anyway, next up is the TNA World Tag Team Championship match. The Nemesis versus the Rascals. The Rascals are not winning this. They are not winning this. So I'm sad to say. Because basically the Nemesis have only just barely won the titles, guys. Like, honestly, they're not just gonna hold these titles for a couple of weeks or whatever, and then give them over or whatever else it is. It's not gonna happen like that. It's not. They're at least gonna hold them probably till Bound for Glory or even longer. That's not even that long from now. They've only just barely held them maybe for a month or so or whatever else it is. I don't know. But yeah. So, and there's not much build to this either. There's not a lot of build to a lot of the matches here on this show. Though, like, Santino and Robert has kind of been brewing for weeks. Hendry versus Kazarian has been kind of brewing for months. Things like that. But still, like, yeah. I just don't see that you're going to dethrone the champions just after they've won them. It just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, that's where I feel like we're at with that right now, unfortunately. So it does start to make you, like I said this before, with like saying, what are you going to do with Elijah? What are you going to do with Hendry? What are you going to do with all your like upper card wrestlers that are kind of vying for that world title or like in some vicinity of vying for that title? And I do feel like you've got to think about saying, hey, same for the tag teams. What are you doing with the Hardys? You can't just have the Hardys and be sitting there and saying, oh, well, we're not going to use them at Slammiversary, or we're not going to, like, I think Bound for Glory this year is probably their last year on their contract. So between now and Bound for Glory is the last sort of run that they've got. So, like, in TNA at least, for now. Again, like, are you going to say we're not going to use them? Obviously you are, but in what capacity? How are you going to build to the Hardys versus the Nemesis or something at Bound for Glory, or them versus somebody else, at Bound for Glory? So again, I feel like, not like I don't know that you can't do it, just like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do that? So it will be interesting. I need to see what we're going to do. I think this is the last one. Yeah, for now, this is the last one. A match for the TNA International title, Steve McLean versus Mace Warner. Now, this is a bit odd, not even, odd in my opinion, but I think that this is probably a good spot for this in some ways. But again, I feel like the international title is in sort of an awkward position in many ways. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, you can always as well kind of fit Macklin into that, like, world title picture as well. He kind of deserves to be as well. So it's like, well, maybe you start thinking about, like, what are you going to do, more so with him rather than the division, and then kind of like vacate the belt and then kind of like try to start again and try to go with somebody else in that division. I don't know. Again, I don't know if the division is even 100% necessary. I'm not sure. It does feel, like I said a little bit before, it does feel like maybe Harley Hudson and Mario Grace are going to wrestle for the titles. I think that they actually said that that's next week as well. I don't know. I can't remember now. But yeah, that's also really weird, I think, maybe, kind of, unless I've got it wrong or whatever. But still, like, if they are doing that, then it is very much like, well, you guys should be holding back, those things, or trying to, because again, you've got friggin' basically 2 goddamn teams in the friggin' division. So it's like, what are you doing? You've got to build to these things with other teams, with other people, with other things going on, because otherwise then you get to the point where you were trying to get to before anything's really, happened. So then you're kind of sitting there and going, oh, well, where are we going to go from here? Because we've got no one or nothing else to kind of go to because we jumped to this too quickly, again. So that's what happens when you only kind of have basically 2 teams in the division, Like, you can have other teams and they cannot be featured for a few days or a few weeks or whatever it is. But again, you need those other teams there because otherwise it's like, well, what's going on? And Ash and Heather and Heather have basically only just won those belts still. So it is very much like they're early in their run. So it's like, well, are they really going to lose those belts early on within the first couple of months of winning them? Probably not. So you're going to let them beat Harley and Maya on TV, and then you're not going to have them have a match at after that, and then you're going to have nothing for the Elegance brand to do because Spitfire are broken up and because you just beat the only other bloody team that's in the friggin' division. Again, you could say, oh, it was because of shenanigans or whatever else it was, but still, yeah, even so, then you're going to say, oh, well, maybe they'll get a match against all odds or whatever. So what? Then you're blowing through them again at against all odds. And then you're going to Slammiversary and say, oh, well, what are we going to do with them now? And say, oh, yeah, well, we don't have anything for them to do. And especially nothing big. Even if you had something for them, it's like, oh, yeah, well, never mind, because we've already blown through everything for them. There's nothing else for them to do, so I don't know. But still, that is the card thus far. And, I am a little bit miffed or whatever with this week thus far. And seeing where we're at and seeing what's gone down and where we're at with everything. Coming off of this week's TNA, and it's a very mediocre build to the next show, but it's actually nearly sold out, so again, that's pretty darn good, so you can't complain about things not being, the sales not being good or whatever, but it's still I said this before in another video or whatever, you've got to build for the future. You can't just be sitting here and going, oh, well, it'll be all right. We'll turn around and, we'll get there or we'll figure something out. Yes, you will, but, you've got to straighten everything up and you can't just keep, hoping against hope that you're going to, continue these things going that don't have anywhere to go. You need other things for them, or you need to, find some other people to bring in, and you need to give them a good few weeks worth of work, and then or you again need to get rid of those titles and say, okay, let's start again, let's find something or do something else, and make that work again. So I hope that they do that. There is all the wrestlers, they're really great, they do a good job. And I think, I said before, even if you were to say, let's put some sort of singles title on Ash, not to put her in the main card, but let's put her as a singles division champion, and sort of having that main event mafia kind of thing, or that kind of maybe the system or something similar to that, a proper faction. Now the Elegance brand is kind of this faction now that it's got three proper wrestling members. Now you can kind of go ahead and say, okay, let's let's go from here and, make Ash the face of that, the real face of that, and we'll have these other people kind of being there and just kind of, helping out or whatever else it is, instead of, with divided attention type thing. Like, again, maybe you could do that with her being the champion, like the knockouts champion, but you need to build her up a lot as a singles performer, like a lot. So, and that will take a long time, not just a few weeks or whatever. So, I don't know. But yeah. Or you could kind of do it if you find the right way to do it and keep her being like the, scared off heel or whatever. But still, like, I don't really love that, because it's like they need to look strong in some degrees, because otherwise they have no legitimacy, and then it's just like, well, whoever's going to come up next is going to beat them or whatever, or it's just going to be shenanigans every friggin' time, like, for them to win. They've got to be able to win, in some ways, without all the shenanigans or whatever. So, but yeah. That's where we're at right now, guys. So those are my thoughts currently. I don't know. They probably will have some updates coming, but the card is already pretty darn full. So that in some ways is good, but it is also like I think, like, again, they probably announced most of the major matches here. So next week is the less major matches. So you start saying, well, that doesn't mean that they can't announce a title match or something else or whatever else it is. But again, you're starting to feel like, well, instead of like announcing a proper title match, you could just announce a number one contenders match or things like that, whatever it is. I don't know. Again, still, so yeah. But guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys will join me again in another one.